Question: relating to a cleanup operation, can the Earth alter its matter at an atomic or molecular level, or is it restricted to only movement of its form? Datre: the Earth is an expression. The Earth, as we've said before, has consciousness. The Earth can do what it wants to do whether you're on it or not. The Earth constantly changes and it will continue to change. But it will change at an accelerated level from here on in. The changes will continue to accelerate. But the Earth's evolution has nothing to do with you. The Earth has its own evolution and it will evolve whether you're on it or off of it. It does not matter. It will change irrespective. And because there have been so many changes on the planet is going to go back into an entirely different construct. That does not mean that there won't be trees and grass and that sort of thing, but the Earth will cleanse itself. It will clean up its own house. The Earth, or planet, that you're on has its own evolution. That is the difference between a planet and another piece of rock out in space, if you want to put it that way. A planet has a different construct entirely. There are masses that form that cannot hold any form of that which you call life existence. There are certain elements that make it, shall we say, habitable. So it's like everything else, there are masses that are and masses that are not. But the planets that have what you call habitation have a uniquely different construct to them. And they have, well, I think we'll just leave it at that. They're just unique. So people on the planet or people off this planet, it's not going to matter. The Earth will take care of itself. Humanity can in no way affect the real planet itself. A planet is not a part of your holographic reality, per se. It is a real something that belongs to the universe. The same way the material you stuff your body hologram with belongs to the planet. Question: is the probability and simultaneous time system impossible to conceive of with brain thinking, or have we just systematically narrowed the brain scope of thought? Datre: timing and what you call time has not been regulated by you. It has been a universal timing that has nothing to do with you whatsoever. Your linear time has had so much span, and that span is over, and you're working on pseudo-time, shall we say. That is why none of your days are alike. You'll say, what happened to today? All of a sudden it's gone. It was so short. The person next to you will say, this has been one of the longest days I've ever had. You're setting your own time now. You are running on what we would call a pseudo-time. And the reason you're running on a pseudo-time is because of universal timing with other events with which it will coincide. Then, when all of that coincides, then everything will change and everything will take place simultaneously. It has nothing to do with you whatsoever. But the timing for an individual is yours. Question: if realities within the same bubble, our Earth or solar system, for example, are separated by vibrations, is it true also for one bubble to another bubble and from one universe to the other universes? Datre: basically. That is the only way anything can be separated. That is the only way anything can be separated, is by what you call vibrations. It is not a very good word, but it's the only one you have. So there is no other way of separating that which your brain, at the present time, can conceive. Question: Datre has stated that since they are outside of our bubble, they, Datre, therefore, have no influence on individuals within our bubble and no effect on our evolution. They are only here to observe. But by the very act of providing this information for us via a channel, not to mention adjusting the energies that enter the bubble, aren't they in fact influencing individuals, the mass consciousness, within this bubble and in some way, our evolution? Isn't this the intent? Datre: that is a byproduct, it is not an intent. If we were to stand by and not bring forth this information, we would be doing a disservice to those that are in here that have become enamored with physicality. They have become, shall we say, forgotten who they were. Now, by bringing forth this information, the main thrust is to help those who really came in here for some specific reason and did not turn around and leave when the job was done. In other words, it would be like you had a plumbing problem in the kitchen sink and you called in a plumber. Then when the job was finished, he came back. He couldn't get the job finished in one day. He says, well, I have to have some other parts, so I'll come back tomorrow. So the next day he comes back and he brings some other parts. But he finds out, oh, well, this doesn't fit just exactly the way I wanted it to, but I'll get another part and I'll come back tomorrow. Then the next thing you know, he's beginning to eat his meals with you and you're becoming friendly with him. Then, well, this one night it was starting to get dark and he had a long ways to go and you said, well, do you have any family? And he says, no, I live by myself. Well then, why don't you stay overnight with us? Then after staying overnight with you, the next day he went off to work, but he came back in the evening to see if everything was all right. Well, come and have dinner with us, why don't you stay with us tonight? The next thing you know, he's moved into your spare bedroom. John is laughing, but that's exactly the way it looks to us. He's found some place that is comfortable and he's not going to leave. His job was to come in and fix the plumbing. He's forgotten everything else except that this has become his home. That's what happens to some of those that have come in here. Now if someone, after many years of living in this house, said to this plumber, we can't have you living with us anymore, we need that space, because one of the parents is ill and we need to have that spare bedroom to take care of them. The plumber gets mad because he is told to leave. Now if the situation is explained to him, and he is a reasonable individual, he will leave and that will be fine. But until something happens that the plumber has to leave, he will stay. Far better for him to know what is coming and explain to him what the situation is and what it's like. He has forgotten all about what it's like out of your house. Wouldn't it be a disservice to all of a sudden throw the plumber out into the snow and not explain to him why? Then sitting out there in the snow wondering what happened, he would be totally and completely lost. Far better for the plumber that the situation is explained to him than opening up the upstairs window and throwing him out into the snow. He needs to remember who he is. I know that's a very simple analogy, but sometimes I have to use stories for you to understand why Datre is here. That is what it's all about. Then the people that are not interested in this information are not going to pay that much attention to it. They're going to read it and say, oh, there's another channeling. Oh, this is interesting. This is something different and this is new. But that's going to be the end of it. But there are going to be certain phrases that an individual is going to hit and say, now, that's something I've always known, but forgotten. Then search for self will begin. Question: Druvalo Melchizedek teaches sacred geometry. He also states that the sun no longer has any magnetic field. Based on data that there is no detectable difference between the north and south poles, that the sun is no longer fueled by hydrogen, but is fueled now by helium, producing a different light. Comments? Datre: well, there is a word that we do not think is adequate in the explanation, and those are the words, fueled by. Your sun is not fueled by anything. What you see from the sun is not fuel. It is not a gas. It is energy. That is what the sun is reflecting to you, energy. You see it as a color. That is what the human eye detects as color. Energy, at that intensity, has what you perceive as a color. If you could not see color, how would you know it was hydrogen? How would you know it was nitrogen? How would you know it was oxygen? How would you know it was anything else? What kind of an instrument have you got that you can put out there on the sun and know what it is? You can only speculate. What are sunspots? They will tell you all kinds of things about what sunspots are, but sunspots are bursts of energy, perceived by the human eye as color. You see what an interesting thing it is that you have going with your physical body? How fascinating a physical body is to explore and to focus through for your experience. It is fascinating. It is the only time that we can perceive any of these things. Is when we're inside a physical containment. But when we leave the physical containment, we have only perception. And in our perception we know what the sun is. Just like we know what all these other specks in your sky are. You are speculating from the point of physicality. And your eyes are fantastic because they perceive that which you call color. But you cannot perceive as we perceive. We perceive energy. And you have not the capacity of either the physical construct or instruments to perceive raw energy. That is the way your physical containment has been developed to this point. So as to the sun, it can be anything you want to speculate on. Because everyone's guess is as good as the other.